All right, so now that we've got that all loaded up, the next command to start it up is npm start. And if I did everything right, it should come up with, yeah, listening on port 3000. So the next step in all of this is to go to our web browser and enter in HTTP localhost. It's already there, 3000 and /, which is the rest, should bring us restfully into index.html. And yes, there it does. It loads up well, you can't see it here, but it does load up the index.html, which I'll show you is in the editor. Here is index.html. Loads this page up. And I developed this page using Bootstrap 4. So you'll see some of the Bootstrap classes here for such as Jumbotron, the navbar classes, which are stylized menu items for the editor. Now, if I go back to the browser, I'll show you what happens when we highlight. So we have these tooltips that come up when I hover over the editor, and it gives a brief description. This is part of the usability for support aspect of the application. So I have an editor, a menu item on the top level, and a logger. So in the editor it says this is a beer editor. Use this menu to edit your beer recipes. I hope that's self-evident. And this is logger. This is the brew day logger that follows a saved recipe. Of course, we have to have a saved recipe before we can go to the logger. All right, so what I'll do is I'm going to bring up the editor. Click on that. And what it does is it brings up a different type of menu. It brings up a tab or pill menu with just a row of buttons. Sorry, I think this is similar to a tab menu. So we've got the CRUD, we've got the create, read, update, and delete. The reason why I did this rather than a pull down is that I wanted to make it evident that these operations are under the editor. I could have stylized it to be, a tab to this. That would have been better, but the intent was to have this to be up the whole time we're doing the editor function. All right. Rather than go to create, I'm going to read a existing recipe to go through all the different fields. So I click on read, and then it comes up with a selector for a list of recipes. In this case, I have one default recipe, and it's called Charlie Brown Ale. I select it, it's already selected, and I press go. Now it loads up another HTML document, which is kind of cool because we'll go back to the code for this. In the code, backend code, it's actually loading up the editor. HTML was the root page, but then it goes and loads. Let's see if I can find it. It loads the create form, which is actually HTML. There it is. So it loads up the create form HTML. And that then strips out the HTTP head and body tags and then just inserts it like an iframe. So it's kind of a neat thing. And then we do a bunch of initializations, and then we get ready to start to use the app. Well, in this case, it's just a read, but we'll go back on the create here in a minute. So when the read goes through, it shows you all the different parameters, the grain that you've entered, somebody entered in previously, hops, time, amounts, mash parameters, mash off temperature. This is all part of the original design. And then everything here is actually as it would seem on the create page, but I've just disabled it to keep the same look. So it all it is just disabled input. You'll see that the number here is still an input, but it just it's just disabled, meaning that it's read only. That seemed easier than just putting in straight text fields. So we want to create a new beer recipe, so we go to create. And in here we can create a new name. We're going to call this light lager. And we'll give it a specifications. I'm just going to make this one up, 46. And our final gravity actually is always lower because we never gain gravity. Alcohol is an amazing whopping 6.5. It's very bitter. If you're a home brewer, you'll recognize these numbers. We're going to have a darker, I think that's really dark. And then total water is 45.5. Grain is pale malt. And amount is 4.5 kilograms. Now, when I get here, I can also use this step control. So in the code, you'll notice, wow, like I go one hundredths of a kilogram because that's in grams. Because some of these recipes in the grain side will actually be in like 235 grams. So I left that. Now, where that's set up is actually in the HTML for the create form, which is in here, and you'll see here that this is gravity, but you'll see here in the step for the input class is actually you give it a step, and that then I haven't got that up for you guys. That step there, the one I've got highlighted, will show you or allow that number to be stepped that size. It's kind of a neat way of sanitizing your numbers before you post to the RESTful server. Okay, so now we are going to look at adding another grain line, and I do that by clicking on the Add Grain button, and then it fills in at the exact same line just below this. Now we can do this, I believe, up to a maximum of 20 lines. I've got a limit in there. So we'll add, chocolate malt. It's another popular malt. And this time we're going to use the 1,000ths, 255 grams, 0.255 kilograms. And that should take, and the adjunct, so we're going to put in here corn syrup, and that'll take again in maybe 0.5. Now we're going to add does this adjunct button here does the exact same thing as add grains, just adds another line, but hops typically use 2 to 3 hops, so we will put in here nugget at right off the 5 minutes in, and the amount's going to be in grams. So you can see here that the amount is different than here, kilograms, grams. So we're going to put in not much, 25, and then we're adding another hop. Same thing as the grains. We click this, and another one pops up. This is going to be traditional, which is another type of hop. And it's going to come at towards the end, so it's going to be 75 minute, and it's going to be a little bit more. It's 28 grams. So going back a bit in the process, the mash actually comes before the hops, but what I put it in afterwards. It's because it's not an ingredient. The rest time, say, is standard is 35 minutes at a temperature of, you can see the C here, a temperature of 58 degrees. Add another mash step, same as the greens and the hops. You just click that button, it adds another one. So we're going to go for another 40 minutes at 62, and what the heck, we're just going to go another 25 at 67. And then we go to mash off temperature. It's just a single value of 75. These number fields are great for just going up and down, but I think the majority of users are just going to enter it in like 75 and then enter. It doesn't actually enter, it doesn't do anything. Sparge volume in liters, usually we'll just put 2. We're home brewing. Boil time for home brewing is typically 90 minutes. True rest time is roughly around 60 minutes. And the wort cooling parameters, temperature is 17 degrees. Yeast is just a text field, WT002. English, it's a lager. Lager yeast. I don't know if that's right. And liquid, we're going to put 350 milliliters in. All right, so now all that stuff has been entered. So I could cancel it and it'll just clear everything off, or I'll go save in this case. Okay, now I'm going to demonstrate the lager menu item. It can be found here with the pop-up. This is the brew day lager that follows a saved recipe. So I click on that and I have the recipe selector. We have our Charlie Brown Ale and a sparsely populated lighter lager. So I'm going to go with the fully populated default of Charlie Brown Ale. Select that, press the go, and you also notice with Bootstrap it has this nice hover effect. So it tells me that I can click it. So then this view now is a populated screen that's slightly different than the read view, the read in the editor, in that now we have these confirm checkboxes that allow me to log, and we have a few extra fields that help with the brewing process. There's a save button down below and then a cancel in case I want to cancel the logging. So the way this works is these fields are read only, so they look similar to the editor fields. So everything is common throughout the application. So in brewing, you'll prepare some water and you'll put this amount in. There's also a tooltip that pops up and reminds you what to do and why that value doesn't match the recipe value. Then you'll click, once you've done that physically, you'll click the confirm, and then you can move on to the next one. The user would then look at the grain, look at the amount, and then they would confirm they did the addition. As we carry on through the addition of the grains and the adjuncts, we may just want to confirm them all if we have everything prepared ahead of time. So we would just click the confirm all checkbox, and then it conveniently checks all the ingredients for us. Mash steps are minutes at certain temperatures, and the home brewer would confirm once they've reached the temperature, and the rest time in the full version would pop up in a modal. It's not working in this version. And then again, all these confirms as they go through, they would do that step. Then they raise the temperature up. Once it's at temperature, they confirm. And then they would move their grains. This is just a physical operation that they've confirmed they've done it. Addition of water, they again confirm, and then they bring the wort to a boil. And then there's timer presets for all the hop additions. As they get to a time value, once they bring the wort to a boil, a timer would start, and then they would pop up to tell the home brewer when to add it. That's not working in this version. That's one of the misses of the assignment. And then we get into the wort cooling and yeast pitching. This is a physical activity that the home brewer would perform. They would set up their cooling for 17 degrees, and then once it's reached 17 degrees, then they would pitch their yeast, which they prepared ahead of time. Click that, and then they're done. And then they have to wait for 4 to 6 weeks before they can sample their beer.